General Hospital spoilers update for the week of August 25th to 29th reveals that Willow Tate will make a risky proposal while Britt Westbourne suspects new trouble. Portia Robinson will also go too far, so there'll be some big moments happening on the ABC soap. At Alexis Davis's house, fans will see the aftermath of Rick Lansing's head injury. If Ava Jerome just ended Rick's life, then you can bet she'll force Alexis and Christina Corinthos Davis to help her hide what happened. Later, Molly Lansing Davis will corner Christina for answers about her Cody Bell payments and the Ava seduction scheme. If Christina has become part of a horrible Rick cover-up by then, she may have far worse issues to contend with. At GH, Stella Henry will find herself under arrest, so Curtis Ashford's anger toward Drew Kane will intensify. Portia will also witness a shocker, so she may watch as Stella gets taken into custody. Afterward, Portia will smash something in her office before making a dangerous decision. We'll see Portia go too far, so she may regret whatever move she's about to make in retaliation against Drew. As for Trina Robinson, she'll find out the latest Stella news and seek Kai Taylor's assistance, so she might end up plotting Drew's downfall as well. Can Trina open Kai's eyes and convince him to help her? Other GH spoilers say Giovanni Gio Palmieri will relate to Marco Rios during a conversation about their parents. Marco may admit he's glad he reconnected with his father since he's built a meaningful relationship with Sidwell. That could help Gio start bonding with Dante Falconeri since they'll indeed experience a thaw soon enough. Dante will be pleasantly surprised over the progress, but where does this leave Brooklyn Quartermaine? Marco may also express regret over not being able to fix his relationship with Natalia Ramirez before she died. Gio still has a chance to repair the damage with Brooklyn, but rebuilding trust won't be easy. After Willow Tate delivers a risky proposal, presumably to Drew, he'll put more pressure on Michael Corinthos. Willow may be willing to live with Drew again and get their romance back on track if he'll truly help her reunite with her children. That could send Drew even further off the rails when it comes to any threats and power plays he'll make against Michael. Down by the docks, Danny Morgan and Rocco Falconeri will spot a body drifting nearby in the water. That'll give Rocco and Danny quite a shock, so stay tuned for updates on how they'll handle the mayhem. At the Five Poppies Resort, Britt will suspect some new trouble is bubbling up. Could Britt go searching and find Jocelyn Jacks with Vaughn in Captivity? If Britt needs help with a rescue, she might decide to put that burner phone Jason Morgan gave her to good use. General Hospital spoilers say Britt and Jason's paths will cross again soon, so don't miss all excitement. General Hospital spoilers reveal that Jason Morgan and Britt Westbourne have finally reconnected. Jason and Britt had quiet the following before Jason was thought to be buried in the Cassadine tunnels. Is Jason and Britt the super couple that GH needs? Jason Morgan and Britt Westbourne on the run in 2021, Jason was accused of killing Franco Baldwin. After a hit was put out on Jason, Sean Butler agreed to stab Jason so HEW would be transferred to the hospital. Britt and Jason both were in grave danger. Britt agreed to help Jason escape from the hospital. Jason and Britt managed to get away, but Jason was shot in the process. Jason, Britt, and Britt made it to a safe house, but Jason was in trouble and needed help ASAP. Britt and Jason ended up at a lighthouse in Canada. Britt confided in Jason about her Huntington's disease fears. Jason Morgan and Britt Westbourne crossed the line. Jason went with Britt to a local clinic to get tested. Britt was indeed plagued with the marker for Huntington's. Jason and Britt went back to the lighthouse where they kissed, and that led to making love. Fans loved them together. Several fans were hoping that Britt could even have Jason's child. Jason then had to return to Port Charles. Jason later married Carly Spencer before Sonny Corinthos came home. Jason and Britt later went to Greece to rescue Dr. Albrecht and Drew Kane. Jason ended up getting caught in tunnel collapse while chasing Peter August and was presumed dead. Jason Morgan and Britt Westbourne have returned. Jason came back after a couple of years. However, Jason learned that Britt had been killed by Heather Weber. Now that Jason has found Britt, are they the couple that GH needs to girl love in the afternoon a boost? Could Jason and Britt be the next hot GH super couple as they reconnect? Jason and Britt have amazing chemistry. Now that Sam McCall is gone, it should be time for Jason to move on. With a little bit of help with the writing, Jason and Britt could be an amazing couple. Jason certainly seemed willing to reconnect and pull this off. Should the writers put in some effort to make these two a couple to root for? General Hospital needs a fresh and exciting new couple. Jason and Britt are here and waiting. Why should the writers put in the effort and make Jason and Britt the super couple of 2025? Jason deserves to be happy for once, and he hasn't been at years. Where will they go from here? Willow had been pacing the living room for what felt like hours, the weight of her thoughts dragging heavily on her shoulders. Every decision she had made over the last few months seemed to have led her to this moment, but nothing felt certain anymore. She had been through so much: her health scares, her strained marriage with Michael, the ever-increasing family tensions, but this time, she was ready to take control. That's why she was considering the risky proposal that had been keeping her awake at night. It wasn't something she wanted to do, but deep down, she believed it might be the only way to protect her family and keep everything from spiraling out of control. She replayed the conversation with Michael in her head, the way he had looked at her, his expression caught between frustration and desperation. He wanted to trust her, but he knew she wasn't telling him everything. The truth was, she couldn't. If she laid it all out for him, he would try to stop her, and this wasn't something she could risk losing. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was about their children, their future, and the fragile sense of security she was fighting so hard to maintain. Meanwhile, across town, Britt couldn't shake the nagging feeling in her gut that something wasn't right. She had seen the signs before: the secretive phone calls, the hushed conversations, the tension etched into Willow's face. Britt had been down this road enough times to know when trouble was brewing, and she didn't like where this was heading. Working late at the hospital, she found herself replaying her last interaction with Willow. There was something in her tone, something unspoken, something Willow wasn't ready to share. Britt knew better than to push too hard, but she also couldn't stand by and watch a disaster unfold if she could do something to prevent it. Portia, on the other hand, had her own agenda, and she was done playing by the rules. She had been patient for far too long, biting her tongue and allowing things to unfold naturally, but patience had gotten her nowhere. The situation with Curtis had already spiraled once, and she wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Her decisions lately had been bold, some might even call them reckless, but in Portia's mind, she was doing what had to be done to protect the people she loved. What none of them realized was how deeply their lives were about to collide. Willow's risky plan involved making a deal she knew could backfire in devastating ways, but she couldn't see any other option. She had been gathering information quietly, carefully, leaving no digital trace and speaking only to people she trusted. Her nights were sleepless, her days filled with nervous energy, and every time she looked at her children, her resolve only hardened. She needed to get ahead of the storm before it swallowed them whole. Britt's suspicions grew stronger when she noticed inconsistencies in patient records, files that didn't line up, unexplained medical orders, and a few unusual prescriptions that raised red flags. At first, she thought it might just be a clerical error, but the more she dug, the clearer it became that someone was hiding something. And when she cross-referenced the timelines, one name kept surfacing: Willow. It didn't make sense at first. Willow was careful, meticulous, and not the type to make sloppy mistakes. But Britt knew from experience that desperate people made desperate choices, and the thought terrified her. Portia's involvement added another layer of complication. She had been pressing for answers that nobody seemed willing to give her, and when she didn't get them, she took matters into her own hands. Her confrontation with Jordan had been tense and emotional, filled with accusations and bitter truths. Portia had reached a point where she didn't care about keeping the peace anymore. If protecting Curtis meant stepping on a few toes, so be it. What she didn't realize, though, was that her push for control was putting her on a collision course with both Britt and Willow, setting up a chain reaction none of them would be able to stop. The first real turning point came late one night when Britt ran into Willow in the hospital hallway. Willow had been rushing, clearly distracted, and nearly dropped a folder she was carrying. Britt noticed immediately that the folder contained confidential records, ones Willow shouldn't have had access to. Their eyes locked for a moment, and Britt didn't even need words to confirm her suspicion. Willow was hiding something big. "Willow," Britt said carefully, keeping her voice low, "whatever you're doing, you need to be careful. This isn't worth risking everything." Willow froze, her grip tightening on the folder. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I have no choice." But Britt wasn't convinced. She knew from experience that choices made under pressure rarely ended well, and she wasn't about to sit on the sidelines while Willow put herself in danger. From that moment on, Britt made it her mission to find out exactly what Willow was involved in, even if it meant crossing a few lines of her own. Portia, meanwhile, had started following her own trail of breadcrumbs, connecting dots others had overlooked. Her instincts told her that the pieces of this puzzle, Willow's secrecy, Britt's unease, the sudden tension around the hospital, were linked in ways no one fully understood yet. She dug deeper, pulling old records, accessing files she wasn't supposed to see, and confronting anyone who stood in her way. But the further she went, the more she realized she might have underestimated just how dangerous this situation really was. Back at the Quartermain mansion, Michael had grown increasingly frustrated with Willow's evasiveness. He could sense the weight of her secret and hated being shut out. He had tried to be patient, to give her space, but every unanswered question chipped away at his trust. Finally, one night, he confronted her directly. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine," Michael said, his voice tight with emotion. "Whatever you're hiding, Willow, it's going to come out sooner or later. You have to let me in before it's too late." Tears welled in Willow's eyes, but she shook her head. "If I tell you, you'll try to stop me," she whispered. "And I can't let that happen." The tension between them was unbearable, and for the first time, Michael wondered if this secret could destroy everything they had built together. What Willow didn't know was that someone else was already one step ahead of her. A mysterious figure had been quietly monitoring her movements, tracking her calls, and watching from the shadows. Whoever it was knew far more than Willow realized, and her plan, risky as it was about to collide head-on with forces she couldn't control. Britt, still determined to protect her friend, finally decided to confront Portia after noticing her name popping up in restricted access logs. The two women clashed in the hospital stairwell, their argument sharp and heated. "Whatever you think you're doing, stop," Britt warned. "You're going too far, Portia. You're putting everyone at risk." Portia's eyes narrowed. "I'm doing what nobody else has the guts to do. If you don't like it, stay out of my way." Neither woman realized that their actions were unintentionally pushing Willow into even greater danger. Every move they made, every decision they took, was tightening the noose around Willow's plan, making it harder for her to pull this off without being exposed. The night everything came to a head was stormy, the rain pounding against the hospital windows as tension rippled through Port Charles. Willow had finally set her plan into motion, thinking she had accounted for every possible outcome. But Britt's quiet investigation had uncovered something she wasn't prepared for, a hidden connection between Willow's plan and a dangerous player from their past. Britt rushed to find Willow before it was too late, her heart racing as she pieced the puzzle together in real time. Portia, refusing to back down, intercepted Britt before she could reach her. Their confrontation escalated quickly, words turning into shouts, until suddenly, they both realized just how bad things had gotten. By the time they made it to the corridor where Willow was supposed to be, she was gone. Her phone lay on the floor, the screen cracked, the folder she had been carrying nowhere to be found. Britt's stomach dropped. "Oh my God," she whispered, dread curling in her chest. "What has she done?" Portia stood frozen, the weight of her own choices crashing down on her. Whatever Willow had set in motion was no longer something any of them could control, and as the storm raged outside, one thing became painfully clear: Port Charles was about to be rocked by consequences none of them were ready to face. And somewhere, out there in the shadows, someone was waiting for Willow to make her next move. Britt had never imagined her life would turn out like this, not even on the wildest days when she was standing in the halls of General Hospital, watching other people's love stories unfold while hers stayed frozen in time. The walls of Port Charles carried secrets, heartbreaks, betrayals, and miracles, and now, unexpectedly, she found herself right in the middle of one of the most unexpected chapters of her life. Jason Morgan had been her reluctant ally, her unexpected savior, and, in ways she struggled to admit even to herself, the man who made her feel alive again. But whether she and Jason could truly become the super couple that General Hospital desperately needed was still uncertain, tangled up in loyalty, danger, and choices neither of them ever thought they'd face. Their story wasn't simple. It wasn't the fairy tale romance the world expected. Jason was the man with a dark past, a mob enforcer who had chosen loyalty over safety more times than anyone could count. His heart had always been reserved for a rare few, and his walls were nearly impenetrable. Britt, on the other hand, was the daughter of two of the most infamous names in the soap's history, Faison and Dr. Albrecht. Her bloodline was complicated, her history even more so, and her path had been marked by schemes and heartbreaks that left deep scars. On paper, they didn't make sense. But somehow, when they were thrown together, they fit in ways that neither of them wanted to acknowledge at first. It all began when danger forced them onto the same side. Britt had been keeping secrets of her own, trying to outrun shadows from her past, while Jason was caught in yet another power struggle that could tear Port Charles apart. Their connection didn't start with grand romantic gestures or declarations of love, it started in the quiet moments, the small exchanges where their walls slipped just enough for the other to see a glimpse of the person hiding underneath. Jason noticed the way Britt used humor to cover her pain. Britt noticed the way Jason carried everyone else's burdens but rarely shared his own. It wasn't supposed to matter. She wasn't supposed to care. But she did, and that terrified her. For Jason, falling for Britt, or even considering it, was complicated. He'd always put his family and responsibilities before his own happiness, whether it was Carly, Sunny, or the endless web of Corinthos drama that followed him everywhere. Every decision he made carried consequences, and he couldn't risk letting someone in unless he was sure he could keep them safe. But Britt wasn't like anyone else. She didn't ask him to be someone he wasn't. She didn't try to change him or mold him into someone softer, someone more palatable to the world outside the mob. She understood darkness because she'd lived in it herself, and that made their connection different, deeper. Even so, neither of them could ignore the risks. Being with Jason wasn't just dangerous because of his lifestyle, it was dangerous because it meant exposing vulnerabilities they had both spent years burying. Britt had been burned before, and trusting someone again, especially someone like Jason, didn't come easy. And Jason, for all his strength and stoicism, feared letting someone into the parts of himself he rarely revealed. But the more time they spent together, the harder it became to deny the pull between them. Late nights turned into shared confidences, and those moments where their hands brushed or their eyes met lasted a little too long to be accidental. The turning point came when Britt found herself in a crisis she couldn't handle alone. She had been dealing with her Huntington's diagnosis, a reality that terrified her even more than the mob wars, betrayals, and secrets swirling around her. She hated being vulnerable, hated asking for help, but Jason was there, steady, quiet, and unwavering in his support. He didn't offer empty reassurances or pretend to have answers. He simply stayed, grounding her in a way no one else ever had. It was in that quiet loyalty that Britt saw the side of Jason most people never got to witness. Underneath the calm, stoic exterior was a man who cared deeply, who carried his own pain without complaint, and who would fight for the people he loved with everything he had. That's when things shifted. They weren't just two people thrown together by circumstance anymore, they were two broken souls finding something whole in each other. Still, neither of them said it out loud. Their lives were too complicated for simple confessions. There were too many pieces in motion, too many enemies watching from the shadows. Cyrus Renault's threats, Sunny's empire, Carly's constant pull on Jason's loyalty, all of it made their fragile connection harder to hold on to. But somehow, they kept coming back to each other, drawn together like magnets no matter how hard they tried to fight it. And that's what made fans start to wonder, were Britt and Jason the next great super couple General Hospital had been waiting for? Port Charles had seen its fair share of legendary romances, Luke and Laura, Sunny and Brenda, Jason and Sam, but over time, the magic of those relationships had shifted or faded. The show needed a new love story that carried passion, danger, and vulnerability, and Britt and Jason seemed to embody all of that and more. They weren't perfect, but maybe that was the point. Their flaws made them relatable. Their struggles made their love feel earned rather than handed to them. Of course, not everyone supported them. Carly's presence in Jason's life loomed larger than ever, and Britt couldn't ignore the tension. Carly and Jason's bond was unshakable, and for years, many believed they were inevitable. Britt, however, wasn't Carly, and she didn't want to be. She wasn't trying to compete for Jason's loyalty, but she knew where his priorities lay. Loving Jason meant accepting the fact that she would always be part of a complicated web of relationships, alliances, and obligations. Sometimes that reality stung more than she wanted to admit. And yet, despite everything, Jason kept showing up for her, choosing her in small, quiet ways that spoke louder than words ever could. Still, Britt knew she couldn't get lost in the fantasy. Loving Jason wasn't just about romance, it was about survival. Every time Jason stepped into danger, she felt the weight of it, the constant threat that one wrong move could take him away from her forever. And yet, somehow, that risk only made their moments together more intense, more meaningful. When they were together, it felt like the rest of the world fell away, like they could breathe for the first time despite everything stacked against them. But just as their connection deepened, so did the obstacles. Britt's Huntington's diagnosis loomed over every decision she made, and while she tried to push Jason away to spare him the pain of watching her decline, he refused to let her carry that burden alone. Jason wasn't the type to run from a fight, and when it came to Britt, he was willing to stand by her side, no matter how uncertain the future seemed. That kind of devotion scared her as much as it comforted her. She wasn't used to being someone's choice, someone's safe place, and Jason's quiet, unwavering love forced her to confront wounds she had spent years ignoring. Then there was the ever-present danger of Sunny's world. Jason's life had never belonged solely to him, and being with him meant being dragged into conflicts that could destroy everything. But Britt wasn't the type to back down from a fight, and that's part of what made her and Jason such a compelling pair. They challenged each other, balanced each other, and, in the midst of chaos, found something rare, hope. For two people who had been through so much loss, betrayal, and heartbreak, the possibility of something lasting was both terrifying and irresistible. In many ways, Britt and Jason represented something deeper than just romance. They were a symbol of redemption, two flawed, complicated people who had made mistakes, faced consequences, and were still standing. Their love story wasn't about perfection, it was about survival. It was about choosing each other in spite of fear, danger, and uncertainty. That's what made fans root for them so fiercely. They weren't just watching a couple fall in love, they were watching two people fight for a chance at happiness when the odds were stacked against them. And yet, questions still lingered. Could they survive in a world that seemed designed to tear them apart? Could Jason truly put Britt first when the demands of Sunny's empire, Carly's influence, and the constant threats in Port Charles never stopped coming? Could Britt trust Jason fully, knowing her future was uncertain and her past still haunted her? These weren't easy answers, and maybe that was why their story resonated so deeply. It wasn't about guarantees. It was about risking everything for the possibility of something real. As the tension in Port Charles continued to build, so did the intensity between them. Every stolen glance, every whispered conversation, every shared moment carried the weight of everything unspoken. They were teetering on the edge of something neither of them had expected but neither could walk away from. Jason, the man who rarely let his heart lead, was allowing himself to hope. Britt, the woman who had built walls around her heart to survive, was finally letting someone in. And in that fragile, dangerous space between fear and love, they found something worth fighting for. If there's one thing history has shown, it's that the greatest super couples of General Hospital aren't defined by perfection, they're defined by resilience. They're the ones who survive the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the separations, and the constant chaos, and still find their way back to each other. Britt and Jason may not have set out to become that kind of couple, but somewhere along the way, they became a love story fans couldn't ignore. Whether they'll withstand the storms ahead remains to be seen, but one thing is certain, they've already left their mark on each other's lives, and on the hearts of everyone watching. In the end, maybe that's what makes their journey so powerful. It's not about knowing how it ends, it's about watching them fight for every moment they have, no matter how impossible the odds. For Britt, Jason isn't just a protector, a confidant, or even a lover, he's the one person who sees her, truly sees her, beyond her mistakes and her bloodline and her fear. And for Jason, Britt is more than someone to protect, she's the unexpected light in a life that's seen far too much darkness. Together, they're messy, complicated, and imperfect, and maybe that's exactly what makes them the super couple General Hospital has been waiting for. If they can survive the danger, the betrayals, and the heartbreak still to come, then Britt and Jason just might become the love story that defines a new era in Port Charles. But even if they don't, even if fate has other plans, what they've found in each other is real, and sometimes, that's enough. And for now, with the city around them simmering with tension and chaos, they have each other, and for two people who've spent their lives fighting battles no one else can see, that's more powerful than anything else. Britt had always been a warrior, which could explain why she felt such a strong connection to Jason. Neither of them had had an easy life, and neither had been given happiness on a silver platter. They'd both had to claw their way through heartache, betrayal, and loss, and yet here they were, standing together as everything around them threatened to tear them apart. The truth was that their relationship was not based on fairy tales, rather, it was based on survival, trust, and the few moments of quiet they were able to find in a city that never ceased trying them. That's what distinguished them from the other couples in Port Charles, their love was not fragile. It was created in chaos. Jason was not the type of man to let himself be swept away by emotion, especially after everything he had been through. But Britt had altered something in him. She challenged him in ways no one else had, and she wasn't hesitant to call him out, even when it came to his most fervent loyalties. With her, Jason might be more than Sunny's enforcer or Carly's defender. He might be a man who desired something for himself, a man who deserved happiness, even if the rest of the world believed otherwise. And for Britt, Jason was more than just another way to escape her tangled past or her anxieties about the future. He convinced her that she was worth loving, not in spite of her imperfections, but because of them. Nonetheless, the shadows of their lives never went away for long. Every time Britt and Jason appeared to enjoy a moment of calm, another storm rolled in. Between Sunny's wealth, Carly's emotional pull, and the continual bustle of Port Charles, they could never completely relax. Nevertheless, they continued to choose each other. It wasn't about finding simple happiness, it was about creating something meaningful in the midst of uncertainty. That resilience, that reluctance to back down no matter how bad things became, is what distinguished them from everyone else. In some ways, it made them like some of the most memorable General Hospital couples before them, those who fought tooth and nail for their love even when the odds were stacked against them. Fans noticed the fragility in both of them. Britt wasn't afraid to be messy or acknowledge when she was worried, and Jason wasn't afraid to stick by her even when the future appeared dark. That authenticity made them feel relevant in a manner that Port Charles hadn't experienced in years. They weren't attempting to meet anyone else's expectations, nor were they claiming to have everything figured out. They were just two people who found comfort in each other's chaos. That is what led many people to assume that Britt and Jason may be the next fantastic pair General Hospital badly needed. they were both aware of the risks. Nothing in Port Charles lasted forever, not love, alliances, or even safety. But, for once, neither of them was willing to let fear guide their decisions. Jason desired Britt. Britt wanted Jason. Even if tomorrow brought grief, danger, or treachery, they had each other today, and in a city like theirs, that was important. If fate permitted them to continue fighting side by side, Britt and Jason's love may redefine what it meant to be a super couple on General Hospital. Even if fate was harsh, their story would live on, because certain relationships are too strong to be forgotten.